Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambham Śaṅkarācārya madhyamam Asmadācārya paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Mūkam karoti vācālam Pangum langhayate girim Yatkrupatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. ओम शिष्य आत्म समर्पण कार्पण्य दोषो उपहत स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्म सम्मूढ चेताः यश्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ओम. Welcome to the class, and we are entering the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called Karma Yoga. In the second chapter, Bhagavan had explained what is the Atma Anatma Viveka, and he touched upon the core concept called as Karma Yoga. However, he had also criticized some of karma. If in case a person is doing with a conscious effort of I am doing, that becomes a karmi. Whereas when the person does the same action with a surrender to the God as the attitude, merely as an instrument in the hands of the God, accepting anything that comes in the return as a prasad, it is called as Karma Yoga. And then he also spoke about what is the Sthitaprajña, the greatness of knowledge. In between, he was always telling Arjuna to go and fight the war, do his duty. This raises a small doubt in the mind of Arjuna. This chapter will start with the question of Arjuna. He will ask, Bhagavan, you are saying that the jnana, the path of knowledge, is superior to that of the path of action. If that is the case, why are you asking me to do this gore karmani, this terrible action? So that is the way this chapter will start. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardhana tatkim karmani gore mam niyojayasi Keśava is the way that it will start. So for this, Acharya has given a detailed introduction for this particular chapter in his Bhāṣyam. We will first go into what Acharya has given as an introduction, and then we will step into the Karma Yoga. Acharya says, Shastrasya pravritti nivritti vishaya bhute dve buddhi bhagavata nirdishte sankhye buddhihi yoge and buddhihi iti cha. So Bhagavan gave two kinds of path of progression and regression of the beings from the Shastra. They are Sankhya Buddhi and Yoga Buddhi. Therein, the verses from Prajahati Yada Kaman, which is 2.55, Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmani Eva Atmanaha Tushtaha. Right? So that is the way he introduced Sthitaprajña. To the end of Sankhya Buddhi, the pursuit of sannyasa, the absolute state of accomplishment, kritarthata, being Esha Brāhmī Sthiti, that is 2.72. That was the last shloka that we saw in the previous chapter. While in the verses around Karma Yoga, Karmani eva adhikaraha te 2.47, Bhagavan establishes that Arjuna's authority is only karma, which was not clearly established as a means to liberation. Shreyaha praptim. Seeing this, Arjuna, whose mind had become confused, alakshya, having observed parakuli, the confusion, the confused aspect, he spoke, how is the highest good attained? Katham Bhagavan Shreyaha Adhigamyate is the way that he has put, Acharya has put. Especially after having taught the steadfastness in knowledge as the direct means, Sankhya Buddhi Nishtha Sthapyate. Karma, even if performed organically, paramparya api. Acharya expresses that under such confused state, parakuli bhavaha, the question from Arjuna is justified. We in tradition push it as not having understood karma versus karma yoga. That is the way that we have been teaching. Even in the last time when we were taking the class, when we were going through this, the main confusion was the difference between karma and karma yoga was not immediately taken by Arjuna, which leads to this particular question is the way that we say. Here Acharya says, in fact, given that this was the way that the description was given by Bhagavan, there was a bit of confusion, and hence Arjuna has asked this question. To resolve that question, Bhagavan explains clearly the division between the two paths, which is knowledge and action. Some commentators interpret Arjuna's question differently and accordingly explain Bhagavan's reply in different ways. However, in this text, just as the meanings of the Gita are systematically explained throughout, here also the true meaning of both the question and the answer is clarified. Some interpret the Gita as teaching a combination of knowledge and action for all. But Upanishads clearly state that liberation comes only from knowledge after renunciation of action. We had taken some quote from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad for this also. Therefore, this has been continuously established, which is that the karma and the jnana, they are not in the same path. They are not together. Samuchayam is not possible. Here, Acharya examines whether the teaching applies differently to different ashrama. He considers a possible interpretation that only householders, by renouncing Vedic rituals and gaining knowledge, attain liberation. This is being presented as a view to be examined, not the final conclusion. Further, Acharya says, this too combines the earlier and later portions into one view. The view that all ashramas follow a combination of knowledge and action. Having declared that this is the established teaching of Gita, how can that be justified? When liberation is from knowledge alone, how can it be said for other ashramas? So there is the Purvapaksha's arguments about having, different rules for different ashramas in itself is very conflicting in nature. Another view says only householders, after renouncing the rituals, attain liberation through knowledge alone. This is for, when we go by the proper ashrams, brahmacharyam to grihastham to sannyasam. Even while duties exist, they are ignored as though absent. And liberation is said to come from knowledge alone. And this approach also is flawed. If you say that only householders attain liberation through knowledge combined with duties, then why exclude other ashramas? If it is knowledge, then it should be equally applicable to all. How is it that we are excluding one ashrama from the other? And if actions are really part of the means to liberation, then only smartha karma should be included, not Vedic rituals. So this view also does not stand, as they are contradictory in nature. Further, Acharya says, suppose it is said that only for the householders there is combination of Vedic and Smarta duties, or it is said that liberation comes from knowledge along with only Smarta duties, then for the householder these painful duties would be unnecessarily imposed. There is no purpose that is getting attached there. This would imply that only the householder gets liberation because of hardship, not others. And that would be not reasonable. Then, should liberation come only because of the householder's hardship? Not for other ashramas. The question arises because other ashramas do not have such duties. This would be very unreasonable. All these interpretations are incorrect across all scriptures, Upanishads, Itihasa, Purana, Yoga Sutras. The consistent teaching is knowledge is primary and action is to be renounced. Here, we should keep in mind, when we say renounced, it is not dropping the action. It is the dropping of the actor behind the action. The kartha bhava tyagam is the most important thing. So long as I am going to have this kartha bhavam, it is going to continue to induce me into the action and the result, the cycle of samsara. For one to go over the cycle of samsara, the kartha bhavam is the one that needs to be renounced. Therefore, the idea that knowledge and action together lead to liberation is not correct. Liberation comes from knowledge alone, after the renunciation of all actions. The key words from Bhagavan that one needs to focus is jnana karmanoho samuchayah na purusharthah sarva karma sannyasa vidhanat. He is insisting on this particular aspect of the response from Bhagavan. There is no way that jnana and karma can be put together as a means to liberation. Does it mean karma is not going to be of any use? No. Karma is going to be a purifying agent, a chitta shuddhi sadhanam. That is what is the work of karma. So karma is needed till the time you get prepared for jnana. Once you are prepared for jnana, that ahambhava tyagaha becomes essential. He should not pursue the worldly striving. Instead, he lives by alms. This comes from Yajnavalkya's when he addresses the group of seekers. This is the example that the quote that Acharya has given from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Bhikshacharyam charanti is the way that Upanishad puts it. Tasmat nyasam esham tapasam atiriktaram ahuhu. Narayana Upanishad is also something that he has quoted. Na karmana na prajaya dhanena. It's a very, very famous or very, very important mantra that comes in Mundaka Upanishad. Right? It's only through tyage naike. Tyagena, it's only that particular emphasis is being put there. Brahmacharyadeva pravrajate. This is Jabala Upanishad. Jabala Upanishad is a minor Upanishad. It is among the oldest Upanishad that discusses the subject of renouncing the worldly life for exclusive pursuit of spiritual knowledge. Yajnavalkya answers question where the questions are posed by Brihaspati, Atri, students of Brahman, students of the Atmajnan, the king Janaka, and by Atri again. So it comes as a lot of question and answers in this particular Upanishad. If you're curious as to why this is called the Jabala Upanishad, right, and people who are aware of the Upanishad, there is a Satyakama Jabala that comes in Chandogya Upanishad. This is not that Jabala. Jabala is the Gotra from which the Yajnavalkya comes. And because it is tradition which is emphasized always, the Upanishad has been named as Jabala Upanishad. Right. So he quotes from these many Upanishads to say that this is the importance of our pursuit towards the Atmajnana. Give up dharma and adharma, give up truth and untruth. Having given up both, give up even that which you are giving up. Right. So, Sarva Dharman Parityajya is the way that Bhagavan will conclude this Upadeśa in the 66th shloka of 18th chapter. So, that is what is the emphasis that is coming here. Moksha does not depend on action. Objection is daily duties must be performed to avoid sin. And the response is no. That applies only to those who have not renounced. Because the result applies only when there is a karta behind it. One who has renounced does not incur any kind of karma phalam. That karma phalam is that which is the reason why you are held in the samsara. That karma phalam can be let gone only when the karta bhavam is gone. So, but those who have not renounced are still bound by karma. Acharya had also quoted from Shanti Parva in Mahabharata, right, and so on. And all these things are providing an emphasis that this attitude of I am the doer or he is the doer. You may say that I have let go of all my ahambhava and I don't even ever say I. Whenever I have to address, it is only we, which is the word that comes from my mind, and that is my attitude. Right? You can say that. But so long as you say that he has done it, that attitude, again, see, transactionally, we can still call. That is not what it is. The attitude that we have is I versus he versus you. That division, so long as one has got, there is a binding of the karma into that person. Because he has not been able to let go of the ahambhava internally. Become fully objective in your approach, not subjective at all, is the main underlying aspect that is being discussed in this place. Further, Acharya says, it cannot be said that sin arises simply from not doing duties merely because daily duties are not performed. Right. So it is just if somebody has missed out on a daily duty, a sin has arisen. Right. So that kind of a thing cannot be said because the scripture says, that is from Chandogya Upanishad, from non-existence, an existence cannot arise. When there is no action, there cannot be a result for that action. It cannot arise. So sin cannot arise from non-performance alone. If the Veda says sin arises from not doing prescribed action, then Veda would become harmful and invalid. As in, such a claim would make Veda unreliable. Both doing and not doing would lead to suffering. This would make all action meaningless. Knowledge cannot arise from action. As in, knowledge is not produced by an action. Therefore, for the renunciation, there is no role for action. Also, combination of knowledge and action is untenable. Therefore, the combination of knowledge and action is logically impossible, is the way that he has argued in his Bhāṣyam. This requires a deep contemplation, and we will be doing a lot in the subsequent part to Gita. this should be done beyond what we are learning in Bhagavad Gita as well. That clarity should arise as to what is action, what is non-action. There will be a very beautiful shloka that is going to come in this chapter where Bhagavan will say that nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krita. So he says that there cannot be a single moment where you can be without an action. And this action must be seen as the prakritik amsam, not the purusha amsam, not the atma. That I getting attached are these places where we will have to contemplate into ourselves and figure out where is action, where is it that I am getting bound, and how to unbind myself from that action. Further, Acharya says, if indeed by Bhagavan in chapter 2, he has said that knowledge and action together, both were meant to be practiced together, then Arjuna's question would not make sense. What he says, if knowledge is superior to action, they both are required. I cannot say this versus that. It would be illogical. If Arjuna was told to practice both, the idea that knowledge is superior would have been stated. Then the superiority of knowledge would already be clear. Then why do you push me into terrible action? Such a question will also not arise. It is not correct to assume Arjuna misunderstood the teaching. Otherwise, his question would not arise. If one argues that knowledge and action cannot be practiced together, then the question is justified. Arjuna is asking sincerely, not out of confusion or opposition. And Krishna's answer is not addressing a different question. He's not saying that, hey, you have misunderstood, or he has totally answered something different. He has very clearly given a response to Arjuna's question. So the question is genuine and the answer is also matching exactly. Bhagavan's reply is not meant to correct an ignorance. And that is the way that the answer will be when we go into those shlokas, the third shloka onwards. Bhinna Purushaha. From Krishna's teaching, it is clear that knowledge and action are meant for different people. Tasmat kevalat eva jnanat mokshaha iti eshaha arthaha nishchitaha Gita Shastre cha vakshyate. Therefore, moksha comes from knowledge alone. This is a definite conclusion and will be further explained in Gita. Jnana karmanoho ekam va na nirdeshya iti cha eshaha vishayah ev prashnah anupapannah ubhayoho samuchaya sambhava. If combination were intended, Arjuna's question would make no sense. Kuru karma eva tasmatvam iti cha jnana nishtha asambhavam Arjunasya avadharane darshayati. Bhagavan will establish this and show that Arjuna is not yet ready for the path of knowledge, and therefore action is the prescribed function for Arjuna. It will come in the 5th chapter also, very, very clearly. Proceeding to the shloka, Trithiyodhyayah Karma Yogah Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhir Janārdana Tatkim Karmani Gore Mam Niyojayasi Keśava. Going word by word, Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna spoke. Jayasi Chet. Jayasi is superior, having a higher value. Chet, in case. If that is the case, karma naste, when compared to karma, action-oriented way of living. Matha is your opinion. right? So Matha is emphasizing that if that is your opinion, if that is your thought, if that is your consideration, Buddhir Janārdana, when compared to Buddhihi, life in pursuit of knowledge. Janārdana means Jana Ardhana, one who is worshipped by people, Lord Krishna. Tat kim, then why? Karmani ghore. Karmani is engage in action. Gore, and that too a terrible one like this, a war in which we are expecting millions to be perished. Mam, me, niyojayasi, suggesting, recommending, or more appropriately, asking me to get involved in. Keśava, O Keśava, one with a beautiful hair, or one who annihilated the demon Keshi. So he is addressing Bhagavan Keśava. First is Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana. If you take a look at this, the obvious question is what makes Arjuna raise such a question? So for that, we can look into the second chapter references. For example, in the 39th shloka, Bhagavan started Esha te bhita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shruno buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. So here very clearly he has said that karma bandham, and he has given a very high presentation about the Jnana Yoga, Sankhya Buddhi. Again, in the 49th shloka, Durenahi avaram karma. Avaram, he has used the term avaram. Where is that which is of choice, that which is like a blessing. Avaram is unblessed. So we had seen this earlier. Durenahi avaram karma, buddhi yoga dhananjaya, buddhau sharanamandvicha. So he says, in the knowledge, sharanam anvicha, kripana phalahetavah. And those who are desiring the karma phala are kripanaha, is the way that he has put. We analyze this as karma yoga, but buddhi yogam could also be inferred as jnana yoga, but perhaps misses the 2.48, where yogastha kuru karmani. In the previous shloka, Bhagavan would have said, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So very clearly Bhagavan has brought it. And then he has said, you keep yourself away from karma, not karma yoga. So he's very clearly established that you do your karma in as though you are in a yoga. We will talk about those things when we go into the third shloka. Here, very clearly Bhagavan has said, but Arjuna was definitely getting a little distracted by this 49th shloka, wherein very clearly he has said, keep your distance and focus on buddhi yogam. So that could have also induced this question in Arjuna. The other thing that we look at are buddhi yukto jahati hai ubesu krita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. Bhagavan said, giving up, right? Jahati, the sukritam and dushkritam, and attaining a state of focused buddhi, buddhi yukta, misunderstood to be something yogic, overlooking, overlooking the words karmasu kaushalam. Kaushalam karma kuru is another very, very important thing. Whatever action that you are doing, do it in the best of its way. That is again a clear emphasis that karma is not something that is being degraded. Rather, karma yoga is getting promoted, while buddhi yoga is the meaning or is the means to attain moksha. That is what Bhagavan had emphasized in the chapter 2. However, because there are a little conflicting kind of statements, Arjuna could have gotten this doubt in his mind. The other one is in 53rd shloka. Shruti vipratipannathe yada sthasyati nischala samadhavachala buddhihi tadha yogam avapsyasi. Right, so yoga karmasu kaushalam, the Shruti vipratipannathe is the way that Bhagavan had said, where vipratipanna, the Shruti, which is Veda, has vipratipanna, which is it has conflicts. And you should overcome that yada sthasyati nischala, where you get a definitive buddhi. Right, samadha achala buddhi. He uses samadhi and also achala buddhi, which we saw in the previous chapter. So this is again something where the emphasis of Jnana has been provided, and hence there is a possibility of one to understand that the knowledge is being spoken superior to that of karma. And hence Arjuna is asking the question. And that too very beautifully. He didn't say that you are saying it wrong or there is conflicting way or there is contradictory statements in you. He is saying, if it is your opinion that if it is, that if is a very important if, where he says that perhaps I could have misunderstood too. So if that was the intention, then how is it that you are asking me? That is the way Arjuna has presented the question also. The conclusion of Sthitaprajña is also heavily favoring the intellectual aspects. This leads Arjuna to the confusion on what Bhagavan has said. The humility of Arjuna can be seen in how he presents it. In case your opinion is, buddhi is being superior to karma, there is an implicit meaning that perhaps Bhagavan was not intending to say that. And the term ghore karmani is also to be observed here. This is again, an opinionated mind. Ghor means violent, terrible, venerable, etc. Now, this also underscores the compassion that is still in the heart of Arjuna. To a balanced mind, there is nothing called as Ghore Karmani or Shantam Karmani or Saumyam Karmani. There will be nothing. It will be always a karma is a duty that needs to be done, that which has to be done. And there is no personal attachment into that karma. When I create an opinion on a karma, it means I have become an actor. I have become a doer. And only in such a mind, there can be a question about this is a nice karma, this is a bad karma. This is a preferred karma, this is not a preferred karma, etc. That kind of differences will vanish in a mind which is stasyati, which is achalaha, which is very steady in nature. From the standpoint of view of dharma, Bhagavan never classifies the battle as good action versus bad action, pleasant action versus unpleasant action, or gentle action versus terrible action. Rather, Bhagavan had clarified, Swadharmam apichavekshya, even if in case in performing your own duty, should a death be encountered, na vikampitum arhasi, dharmyadhi yuddha shreyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. Further, he had also said, Ata chetvamimam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi, tataha swadharmam kirtincha hitva papam avapsyasi. Right. So here he says, if in case you are saying that I will not perform my dharma, then there will be a papam that will come. But if in case you are doing your swadharma, even if in case you're going to kill someone, it is not considered to be an adharma. It is, as a kshatriya, your duty to fight this war. But Arjuna feels this action looks terrible to me. Therefore, it must be spiritually inferior. This is again our mindset, something that we can all question about ourselves. I like this karma, so this must be a good karma. I don't like this karma, so it must be an adharma. So we are trained to think from that point of view. If in case there is going to be a bloodshed, it is a bad karma. If in case it is going to be, bringing happiness, then it is a good karma. We are dividing it based on our experiences to a specific action. And this is a natural thing that is happening in our mind. And it is also heavily influenced by various social presentations that we are going through today. There must not be any kind of an opinion onto the karma. The karma must be seen from the dharma point of view. When I say dharma here, I am talking about the varna ashrama dharma. If we take today's society in terms of political righteousness, in terms of our citizenship righteousness, in terms of the righteousness with respect to a thing that needs to be done for the world, you can look at it from that point of view. But the best way to apply it is using that dharma, the dharma based on ashrama and varna ashrama dharma. So taking that into consideration, we must be able to establish that which is right to be done needs to be done. That is the thought that we should put ourselves into. Bhagwan's response can be seen in the value. The spiritual value of an action is not determined by how pleasant or unpleasant it appears. Rather, it is determined by whether it is keeping with one's swadharma and whether it is performed with proper understanding. In a proper way, karmasu kaushalam, kaushalam karma kuru is the way that you should take it into consideration. Our observation. The grief of chapter 1 has been reduced, but the underlying adhyasam, the moham, is still operating. The word gore karmani is itself an evidence of that continuing confusion. So that is why we put an emphasis on focusing on this term also, gore karmani. If you are seeing, you are in duality. When you are in duality, mind will think good, bad, pleasant, unpleasant, desirable, undesirable, ghoram, aghoram, etc. If you are in the path of dharmya, whether it is dharmyam or adharmyam, whether it is kartavyam or akartavyam, whether it is swadharmam or paradharmam. So our drive will be only from a dharma point of view and not from the point of view of an opinion. That is another lesson that we should take from this shloka in Bhagavad Gita. For a doubt to arise, there are possibilities that the listener has not properly grasped the Upadeśa. The teacher has not properly explained the concept, or the teacher has himself not understood the concept. Basically, just passing on, reading from somewhere without having a total understanding into oneself. These are all the places where an Upadeśa can lead to a doubt. With respect to chapter 2, Bhagavan was very clear in his expressions. Bhagavan had also praised the Karma Yoga. Neha vikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. We had seen this in the 40th shloka. Bhagavan had also emphasized that the only authority you have is to engage in action. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbuhu ma te sangostva karmani. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So Bhagavan had also praised the karma yoga. That has not been registered properly because of the preceding and subsequent statements in which Bhagavan had put down the karma attitude in us. This will lead to a dosha, a fault in the student. It is called as filtered listening. The problem with us is often we listen to get a confirmation to what we have already concluded. The root cause of such filtered listening is the prior convictions and judgments that we have already made. In fact, this is generally to such an extent that if the teacher aligns with one's prior convictions and judgments, they tend to feel the class was excellent. Human mind is tuned to appreciate recognition. We can see that in our songs also, right? When a song that you know is played, you tend to enjoy it more than a song that you have never listened to. This is our human tendency. And this leads us in terms of where we are getting bound by our own buddhi. Herein, Arjuna was inclined towards sannyas. What he said, I don't want to fight this war. I will just drop my weapons and I will take the life of seeking alms to live. When the mind is oriented towards a concept, the other aspects spoken made lesser impact in Arjuna. Hence he says Jayasi. Bhagavan did not say Jnana Yoga is superior to Karma Yoga. He had said Karma Yoga is superior to Karma. In fact, he will clarify it later also to say that both of them lead to the same result. Brāhmī Sthiti is attained by only those who have Pratishthit-prajña. He missed out on the key teaching that Karma Yoga is the means to Pratishthit-prajña, not as a direct contributor, but rather it is a preparatory groundwork before it gets Pratishthit in us. And hence, Karma Yoga was never spoken down of by Bhagavan, but karma was. And hence, the question that came into Arjuna can also be attributed to the natural thing that happens in us, which is called as filtered listening. And this filtered listening is something that we all should try to overcome. If indeed it is the combination of jnana and karma, Acharya speaks here, then making knowledge superior to action, atishaya karanam, making it superior, becomes unreasonable, anupapannam. As in, knowledge cannot be said to be superior, atirichyate, to karma. Yet, you instruct me to perform actions which are not direct means to liberation. Pratipadayati is the word that Acharya has used. You instruct me, and ashreyakaram, not leading to the goodness, are the key words here. This raises the question, upalambham, why suggest the himsa-driven karma? If the knowledge and karma were indeed spoken together, then there is no basis for asking why engage in ghore karmani, and how Acharya is going to link it to the shloka number 2 in Karma Yoga. Time is 7:24. Maybe we should take a break here today, and we can connect again in our next class. Going to Q&A. Jyoti ji.
Namaste and Ashti. Thank you so much for referring the shloka back to the second chapter. Now that leads me at least to go back and review the same class again about Buddhi Yoga. But thank you so much. I have no questions on today's class.
I will take a leave now, and I will connect with you in our next class. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.